Imagine an all-star baseball hitter, Mike Trout paired up to face Jasprit Bumrah in an IPL game, or Virat Kohli standing in the batter's box watching a 95 miles per hour fastball fly in from an elite pitcher like Jacob deGrom.
Today, we are diving into a crossover you didn't know you needed. What happens when cricket players swap sports with baseball players?
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the River Sweep Show. I'm your host Suyash, and joining me as ever is my co-host AB. New beginnings for you, AB. How's it going?
All good, Suyash. Yeah, a lot of new beginnings for me, a new job, a new city. I'm back to Mumbai after a few years, so looking forward to that. One thing, although which stays constant, is everything about cricket and recording this podcast on a Sunday evening for all of us. What about you, SS? What's up with you?
Yeah, I started my new job a couple of weeks back, so settling in. It's getting colder and colder each time we speak in the place that I stay in. But a lot of cricket action going around. There are five white ball series that are happening amongst the top 10 nations, so plenty of cricket to follow. I'm picking and choosing. Yesterday, I was watching Phil Salt demolish the West Indies in the first T20I game. And Pakistan, after 22 years, win an ODI series in Australia. And a lot of discussion has been around the selections, the new Australian players, Jake Fraser McGurk and his baseball swing. And I was also following a lot of news that I sometimes do over the weekend. And in baseball, Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series against the New York Yankees. And certain Shohei Ohtani from Japan, who's got this mega contract with LA Dodgers and is being termed as a generational guy, probably in the same breath being talked about to Babe Ruth. So it got me thinking. Cricket and baseball both have bats, balls, and wickets and innings. And it got us talking. What do we have in store for our listeners today, AB?
Yeah, definitely. Cricket and baseball are such similar sports. There are so many similarities and yet a few differences. So, today, what we'll be doing is we'll be evaluating what would happen if baseball players played cricket and what if cricket players played baseball. What are the skill sets required? What are the areas that each of them would do well in, would not do well in, would struggle with? So, that is what we discussed today. And talking about baseball and cricket, I know SS, you have been researching a lot about it, you have been reading a lot about it. So, quickly for our viewers, tell us about baseball, the formats, rules, the equipments.
This is probably the first time when I have been reading the rules of a sport because generally, while growing up, you always watch sports on the television and you pick up the rules by yourself, or somebody in your friend circle or in your family would tell the rules about a game. So it was quite interesting. And also, I was watching some Shohei Ohtani innings as well, some of the big home runs that he was scoring. So essentially, baseball is actually a 3 hour game, and it has 9 innings. So, as you would imagine, the innings are much shorter than the test match innings or the one day innings that we are used to in cricket. There are 9 players, and there is a concept of a halftime as well. Unlike cricket, in which we have like a lunch or a dinner or a tea, here it happens at exactly the middle point of the game itself. The rules are a bit of course, different to cricket. You have batters and you have pitchers. Pitchers could be thought of as equivalent to bowlers, and then you have a keeper as well. The interesting thing in terms of batting and hitting is that there are foul zones over here. Unlike cricket, where you can hit anywhere on the cricket ground, and if there is no fields mate, you can take a single or score 4 runs or 6 runs. Here, you have certain zones in which you can hit, and you can imagine when you think about the highlights, people are not hitting in the reverse way, they are hitting in front of the V, as we know from cricket. And there are 4 bases which can be thought of as wickets, and people keep running in the diamond. So it's a diamond field and not an oval field as we think of in cricket. And unlike cricket, in baseball, 2 players can get out at the same time. It's called a double play. So you hit a hit and then you drop the bat and you start running. but you could be caught out and you could be run out if the other guy doesn't reach the base. And then the more important and the rule that everyone knows about is that you get three strikes. So if you get three strikes, then you are out. But the ball also needs to be hit by the pitcher in a certain way. There are some intricacies around it, but these are, let's say, the major rules. But even the equipments are very different, and if you compare between ball and bat, and as you have observed and also researched a bit, maybe you could let us know what is your observation about the bat and the ball and the dynamics around it.
Yeah, of course. So when we compare the bats, bats have a larger surface area. They are flat, wide. Baseball bats are rounder, thinner. When it comes to the balls of the two sports, they are more similar. They are made of cork and leather. Cricket balls also have a lacquer around them. Plus, they are a bit smaller and heavier than baseball balls, but then around the same weight, not that different. One difference with the fielders is that in baseball, fielders use a glove, a single hand glove. Even the keeper equivalent of baseball would use a glove. So, broadly, these are the equipments. Now, talking about skill sets, SS, what do you think? What are the kind of skill sets which are different in baseball, cricket, very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you think about pitching. Unlike cricket, there is no categorization of pitchers per se. In cricket, we have fast bowlers, we have spinners, and then we have off spinners and leg spinners. In baseball, you are a pitcher, and then you are categorized basis on the stage of the game that you're bowling. Some are like bowl at the top of the innings, some are called closers because they bowl at the death. Some are called the setup pitchers because they set up a batsman and set up the innings for the other pitchers to come in. Knuckleball is something that has come from baseball into cricket and is being used a lot in limited overs format. And knuckleball specialists are the only categorization that are available. So there's a skill set in trying from a fast bowler's perspective. There is a lot involved from baseball side. There is no element of spin, but trying to use your fingers or your wrist or your knuckles to slow the pace, increase the dip, increase the speed, and then they reach the 90 miles per hour, which are also bowled by our top cricket bowlers as well. In terms of batting, home runs are much more harder to hit than sixes because of the smaller bat, the dimensions of the ground, and also because of the foul zone rule. In terms of fielding, the big difference comes, which a lot of cricket fans make joke of, that baseball they hit against the wall and they claim that they have done an acrobatic catch, but it is always with the use of a glove. In cricket, apart from keepers, makes use of gloves. They use their bare hands. So there is an element of better catching you would probably think of in terms of cricket, but baseballers are known to throw the ball at much more precision from a big boundary level, and they also need to make sure that they throw at the base that they want to throw in order to get a player out. So these are the elements when it comes to batters, bowlers, and fielders. But these aren't just the commonalities and differences. Over the years, more people have realized that baseball and cricket are similar in nature. A lot of players have tried their hands around, and we have been watching some stuff about baseballers and cricketers. Uh, and I know that you have been watching as well.
Yeah, and on the point around the skill set specifically, SS, there's one more point that I want to add for our viewers is that baseball is a kind of sport where you need quick energy, you need that quick power to hit those home runs or to throw those fast throws. So baseball involves a lot of that quick energy output. Cricket, on the other hand,
Uh-huh.
is a more endurance sport. Although there is some.
I think cricket is more balanced. I think there's endurance as well, and then there is power generation as well, depending on the format, depending on the player.
Yeah, so you also see a lot of baseball players who are very muscular, who are big guys in general. Cricket has a different cricketing fitness per se. Of course, you have new age players who have upped the level of fitness in the game, but still, the level of fitness, the kind of conditioning and training that would be required for the two sports would be a bit different. There would be some crossovers which we'll be talking about in the coming minutes. But yes, that's another point that I wanted to highlight.
It's yeah. I was watching some videos of Harry Brook and Josh Butler trying out some stuff. Uh, But I think I was more interested in some of the historical evidences that have happened when cricketers have taken some inspiration from baseball. Uh, as Americans wouldn't want to take inspiration from the world, but the world likes to take inspiration from America for whatever reason. Uh, I think the first time I heard about baseball being talked about in context of cricket was when Mike Young, the American baseball coach, was hired by the Australian team to improve their fielding standards. And that was the first time when we heard about a baseball influence in cricket. And it did make a difference. To the extent that I think India, leading into the 2011 World Cup, did a boot camp with Mike Young as well. And we will link some of his interviews in the show notes for the listeners. We of course have got range hitters like Jake Fraser McGurk, Evan Lewis. Evan Lewis actually tried out baseball when he was younger. So there have been elements, especially in T10 and T20 formats, that's coming more and more. The best story that I read about baseball and cricket parallels was about a certain bloke called John Bart King. He was there in the late 19th century, and the Australians had toured England for the Ashes, and then they went over to Philadelphia in the US to do a quick stopover and play because cricket was still a bit popular in the US. I remember US and Canada were the first teams to play an international match. Uh, so the Australians played a couple of games in Philadelphia, and the first game they were rattled by this guy who was using swing as a mechanism because he came from the baseball background, which at that point of time the Aussies called as swerve because swing wasn't even in the terminology by then. And the Philadelphia team actually won a game versus Australia, which is bonkers to think about it now. So much so that he went on to tour England for 3 4 years in the late 90s, in the 19th century, and he continued to pick like 400 500 wickets in totality. Every season he would pick 80 wickets, 90 wickets at the average of 15, using just his baseball serve into cricket, and cricketers did not know how to play for it. So that I felt was very interesting, that swing came from has a baseball history.
Yeah, in fact, I've also heard about a story, and this is about a certain overarm pace bowler called Fred Spoforth from Australia. The reason I say overarm is because he used to play in an era where underarm bowling was still quite prevalent. So we are talking about late 1800s, and he was one of the first overarm fast bowlers of the time in cricket. And he actually looked to baseball for a lot of inspiration around why the ball was swinging in the air. An interesting point was when he actually noticed the ball swinging, the cricket ball swinging, he went to the scientists, and scientists really said that, it's just an optical illusion that you're having. But he did not stop at that. He went to baseball games, observed the ball swerve, as he called it back then, and then tried to get some inspiration from baseball into his cricket bowling. More recently, there was an instance where Glenn McGrath actually got a lot of inspiration from baseball, from his friend Craig McDermott, who learnt the art of slow ball from David Nilsson from baseball. So it's like 150 years of taking inspiration from baseball around some fast bowling techniques and slow balls.
I think more and more, even the media is trying to draw parallels between them because MLB is trying to expand in Europe. So they have signed up Harry Brook as their ambassador. I saw a video, as we mentioned, Joss Butler playing along with doing some camps with one of the MLB franchises. Uh, when I was when I was a child, I remember Sunil Gavaskar was in a Donier suitings ad in which he was trying to get a baseball bat and hoiking the ball. I don't think, considering his infamous knock of 36 runs in 60 overs, he would be able to hoik it like that. But it was for an ad, but it was very funny to see. And then I think this is a story which a lot of Indians would know about. There were a couple of blokes in Haryana who used to bowl, and then MLB boot camp happened, and then they bowled pretty fast. They got like a development league contract, a $1 million arm movie came in as well, and they have done pretty well because they could bowl at 90 miles per hour. So a lot of parallels and a lot of cricket knowledge and expertise could help you in baseball. But this is what we are here for because there's a lot to discuss about the what ifs around baseballers in cricket and cricketers in baseball. So we will have to go in a phased manner around this because there's so much to discuss. So AB, For the listeners, it will be good to list down the approach that we are how we are going to go about it.
So first we will look at what if baseball players played cricket. We'll look at batting, bowling, fielding, and captaincy. Then we'll move to cricket players playing baseball, look at hitting, pitching, fielding, and leadership role or captaincy role or coach role. So that is the broad approach that we will follow, and then we'll give our own conclusions there. So let's start with that. What do you say, SS? Let's look at what if baseball players played cricket, and let's look at if they have to bat. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting thought exercise that I was having, and I was looking into baseballers trying cricket. I could find cricketers trying out baseball, but baseballers trying cricket was a little. So there's a lot of hypothetical in our own thought exercise built into this. I think when I think about modern T10 and T20 cricket, in which you do a lot of range hitting, where hand-eye coordination and stand and deliver style, I think the kind of big hitting and the physicality that baseball hitters have, the elite ones can really take to T10 and T20 cricket. I think they can really do well. Of course, there's a big adjustment to the fact that you don't get the ball on the full, but there's 99% of time you will get it on the bounce. I mean, the time they will get a full toss, they will just absolutely smash it. But they will have to get used to the surface and the conditions, which I believe in T10 and T20 cricket, in which the surfaces have become like homogeneous around the world, uh, at least 80% of times, and the boundaries are also brought in. They will do a great job. The other kind of batters that I can do think that can do well is because there's also a concept of running from first base to second base. You don't necessarily need to hit a home run. That is where they can just knock and run. That is something that they can do. Also, in cricket, you can hit at any part of the ground. So even the miss hits, if they have got the muscularity, even the miss hits can go a long distance. And the bigger surface area and the weight of the bat, with some training, I think they can get used to it and do well. The place they will struggle a lot is in the point when there are more skillful bowlers and the pitch conditions are not conducive to them. Maybe you have something to share on this. What is your thought?
Yeah, I feel baseball players definitely would have that ability to spot where the ball is coming from and see it to the bat. So better hand-eye coordination. I feel whenever the ball is in their slot, they will be able to hit it out of the park. They'll be hitting monstrous sixes. So probably we see more of those 100-meter plus sixes in the game, specifically in the T20, T10 kind of formats. I also feel that they will struggle with driving the ball, with cutting the ball. So shots around, say, covers to third man, those are the kind of shots that I feel they would struggle with when it comes to the other part of the pitch, the other part of the ground from, say, long off to fine leg. I think that is where they would really cash in whenever the ball is in the slot, because that is the natural swing that they would have. And of course, they would have a very Jake Megger kind of a swing, probably the body like our muscle Russell. So that's the kind of a baseball player that I see in cricket. Another area that they will struggle is picking up length. And if the ball is stopping on the wicket
Yeah,
or if the wicket is doing stuff, then they will definitely struggle. Spin will be a complete black spot for them, a complete black box for them.
yeah,
So I don't think they'll be able to adjust very quickly to spin.
yeah.
So yeah, that is my take on this.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about spin. Anybody who spins the ball will be a problem for it because they do not have the habit of neither picking from the arm, from the hand, and since they would not be so used to picking the length per se, they will even struggle to pick from the pitch. And since they wouldn't be used to sweeps and reverse sweeps, they would not have any counter, and they are not used to using a lot of footwork. Their footwork is kind of limited to the box from where they are batting. They don't go back, they don't come down the track, they don't go down on their knees to play the sweeps and reverse sweep. I think they will really struggle in those slower conditions. So if it's a monotonous 85 to 90 miles per hour in the slot, full toss, T20 kind of a like a mediocre bowler length, they will smash it. Otherwise, they will
I
struggle.
think Indian team management will be comfortable creating dust bowl pitches in India for them.
Yes, absolutely. There's no harm in there. There's going to be no luck factor against them on that. But speaking of bowling, because we spoke about spinners, uh, what do you think on that aspect? Can pitchers are because they have this habit of bowling on the full, in the slot, or on the full toss length itself, uh, would they be able to adjust to bowling like on the dip, and would, because they have this speed, because they cannot become spinners, they bowl the knuckle balls, they bowl the slower balls. What do you think on this?
I think honestly, the bowlers would struggle. Like if the baseball pitchers were to come and bowl in cricket, they would struggle more than the batters. The reason I say
Yeah,
that is because a 95 miles per hour ball in baseball, everyone would be like, "Whoa, what a ball that was!" But in cricket, they'd be like, they
yeah,
just gave a freebie to the batter. So something which is
yeah.
exceptional in baseball becomes a freebie in cricket. So for the pitchers to transition to the role of a bowler in cricket would be, I think, more difficult because it's a lot of precision, a lot of accuracy. They have to understand the length that they have to bowl and then get good at it, and that is completely unnatural to them. One area that they
I
one area that they definitely would be good at is the pace, as you mentioned, and I think it might be
mm,
that jerky kind of a pace. Also, like Jasprit Bumrah, he has a very short run up, but he's able to generate a lot of pace. I think pitchers would have a similar kind of pace where they can even with the short run up bowl fast, so they might have that angle of deception for the batters. I feel at a domestic level or playing against some of the lesser known teams, maybe say tier three kind of teams in cricket all over the world, they might do well because they might be able to beat batters with the pace. But when it comes to elite level international cricket, I feel when batters are already used to that kind of pace, they will struggle because that is where accuracy and precision would come into play.
I think they would be able to bowl very good Yorkers because they are bowling, because they have the dippers, especially the slow Yorkers. They can do that. But I think there's a fundamental problem which pitchers will struggle in cricket. It's because they have to bowl overarm.
Hmm.
They can't bowl with just like a throwing arm. I think this itself will take so much getting used to that a lot of them will give up playing cricket. So I think, yeah, I kind of second you on that. That you might find baseball batters some success in cricket, but baseball pitchers, unless and until you have been able to learn the overarm skill, maybe Yorkers again in T20 cricket. Otherwise, you will really struggle to find the length, the line, the consistency. Even if you learn the swing, you will not be able to control the swing because you have to tip the ball and make sure that it is hitting the right line.
Another area where I think the baseball pitchers might struggle is that any cricket bowler who is an elite level pacer would have a lot of variations in his armor. Good slower ball, a good Yorker, a good bouncer, an outswinger, in swinger. When we look at baseball pitchers, they specialize in just one or two kind of deliveries. So they will
Yes.
have to develop a much broader repertoire of deliveries in cricket. So that is one area where they will have to actually practice a lot.
Yeah.
But what about fielders assess? What's your take on that?
We see so many acrobatic catches now in cricket as well. The other, I saw Gutkesh Moti take one brilliant catch yesterday in the Windies England game. But so many of baseball also we see vines and videos of fielders latching up against the big ball and then catching it up. Uh, it will take them some getting used to trying to catch with bare hands and trying do that. I think in the outfield they will be able to eventually learn it because they still. I think it's not such a big deal. They are acrobatic and they can throw from the deep as well. So that is something that I do not find a big issue with. Keeping as well would be fine because they will be keeping to the fast bowlers a bit deeper. So they will be able to gauge the pace, the bounce, and they will be able to keep. I'm not so sure about keeping to the spinners. I think they will really struggle to pick the length of it. Not so sure about the in and around the bat fielding because the kind of velocity that gets generated from a cricket bat, and they are usually fielding outside the diamond on the field. I'm not so sure on that.
Yeah, I'm specifically skeptical about their ability to field in that slip to gully kind of a region where the ball hits the bat at a certain angle and then just flies by. When it comes to outfield, I second you on that. I think they have that ability to read the trajectory of the ball. Plus, it's a minor adjustment to get out of that habit of using a glove to bare hands. I think they will be able to get used to it. They are strong men in general, so I think they'll be able to do that. uh, Ground fielding techniques, I think it should be fairly easy. We have also seen that it hasn't been there in cricket throughout. There are players who are now practicing and are good at it. I think the more important ability there is to have athleticism, which the baseball players will have, and they should be able to adapt to that. So yeah, I agree with you that
Mhm.
closer to the bat is where they might struggle. I think keeping it would be fairly easy. And in fact, there was this story about David Nilsson, who is the keeping equivalent in baseball. He was keeping to Craig McDermott, who was an Australian pacer, and he was just standing 1 meter behind the wicket, behind the stumps, and he was able to keep him perfectly. So I think keeping is one place where they would adapt really well to the pacers, not so much to the spinners. I think that would be a task for them, especially in Asian conditions.
And there are also other elements beyond the core facets for batters, bowlers, and fielders. Uh, Cricket and baseball, as we just mentioned earlier, also in terms of fitness regime, in terms of approach to the game, they are very different. So let's take the example of a fast bowler. He needs to run 20 yards, make sure that his fielding placements are in coherence with the line and length he needs to bowl and the conditions and the boundary dimensions. While in baseball, the dimensions are pretty much standard. And then he has to turn the arm over and then control the line and length. There are a lot of factors. With no disrespect to baseball pitchers, I feel that even though they have explosive shoulder movement and they are able to generate that much speed, they have dexterity in their hands that they will be able to hide their knuckleballs and the split finger slow ones. I feel the kind of the tactical approach of cricket, as well as the adaptation to the pitch and the kind of training that you need, this is where a lot of pitchers would also struggle, and maybe the batters as well from baseball.
Absolutely. I mean, just to take it a step forward, I think with the captains would struggle because cricket is a very tactical game and you play that game of tactics for a long period of time over 5 days in a test match cricket. You have to understand the strengths of a particular batter, set fields accordingly. You have to understand those angles, different phases of the game, and change your strategies around that. Which is something which the baseball people would struggle here in cricket, right?
Yeah. One thing that they might be able to bring more is that we all saw the good movie Moneyball and Sabermetrics and all that. They might be able to bring in the analytics side of it, but that is more from the baseball management and coaching setup. While the players themselves have fed that knowledge, because they often say baseball is a soft sport, and it's the coaching setup that gives all the inputs to the players, and the players have to just execute it. So I don't think that even that analytics big up that baseball have will help them to do anything better in cricket field, because they would expect them to be fed knowledge and to execute, while they do not think by themselves. They just rely on the pattern of plays over there. But we have given a lots of thumbs up to how cricket is hard for baseball. I think it's time to switch the script and think about how our great cricketers would do in the game of baseball. So we can go with the same format: batting, bowling, and fielding. AB, what do you think about our batters in baseball diamond?
So the first adjustment that the batters will have to do as hitters in baseball is get used to the thinner bat. So I think it would be a huge struggle for them because cricket bats are much wider, larger surface area. So that would be an adjustment. The second adjustment for cricket batters would be to generate that quick power to hit those long shots in baseball. So a few cricket players who have that range hitting skill set might be more naturals here, while others who are more orthodox players might struggle. For example, someone like Cheteshwar Pujara, who has a more defensive game or a more traditional orthodox driving, cutting, game might actually struggle, while someone like, say, Andre Russell, who has that muscle game, might be better suited here. I think one area where they would be better is manipulating the fields in a baseball game, because that is something which would come more naturally to them, which is a thing which baseball players might not look at. For them, the primary objective might be to hit the ball as hard as possible, but maybe the cricket players might bring in that angle of placing and threading that baseball field.
But I think there is also this counterpoint that because the baseball diamond is also has foul zones, so the cricketers who rely on touch plays, like you think about Mahela Jayawardene or people like that, even though they are really good at getting angles out on the cricket pitch, and even though they can play certain shots, because the scope is so reduced, you have to play in front of yourself. Maybe they would be good for stealing bases. That's the concept in baseball because you need to switch bases. But the big value and the big money would be for players who can actually hit home runs or who can hit ground and can cover multiple bases. And that's where our majority of cricketers would struggle who haven't played or who don't play T20 at an elite level.
Absolutely. The way I like to think about it is that, say, a cricket batter has 10 skills. Most of their skills would be actually useless in baseball. But the two or three skill sets that are important in baseball, they need to be at a super elite level, and which is where they might actually struggle.
Mhm.
Now, after having spoken about hitter position in baseball, what about pitching assist? What do you think? How will our bowlers fare as pitchers in baseball?
I think it will be interesting. I mean, our bowlers in cricket, 90% of times they want to pitch the ball and they want to pitch the ball in a certain length and follow a certain line. The line will still be useful in baseball because you have a zone in which you need to uh, pitch the ball to the hitter. But the length is something they might struggle because you are essentially trying to bowl in the slot, Yorker, block hole length, or trying to bowl on the full with some variations in speed and swerve in the air, which is not natural to our bowlers. Our spinners will be anyways useless because they don't have the shoulder speed to generate that kind of speed. It might just come out as a loopy full toss and that would be hit out of the park. Our fast bowlers who have good control over their fuller length deliveries and also are able to bowl a slower full toss, for example, or a slower low full toss. I can think of Darren Bravo or Dwayne Bravo, for example, or Lasith Malinga. They can be really helpful. Uh, so I think our bowlers can actually do well in pitching if they have like two or three variations up their sleeve. It would require some practice, maybe more shoulder work, but and they don't have to even swing their arm. They at least have some throwing experience because they anyways throw from the boundaries. A lot of fast bowlers actually field on the boundaries as well. So it's not as if that their shoulders do not have that muscle memory. So I am a bit optimistic on our cricket bowlers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I second that. Just imagine a bowler, a pitcher who can throw the ball at 95 miles per hour and has a knuckleball for a changeup. That would be deadly in baseball. And another thing that I wanted to mention is I feel bowlers who rely on momentum to come and generate speed might again struggle a little in baseball because it's a more jerky kind of action. And I think
That's a good point.
bowlers like Jasprit Bumrah, who generate that quick pace because of their body structure at the time of the release, they might be better suited to generate that extreme pace.
Yeah, I can also think of Jofra Archer, who I was watching an interview with Isa Guha yesterday, and he was being asked that what are the top tips that he will give to a young budding fast bowler, and he said, "Don't run up like me," because he doesn't put a lot of effort when he's running. It's all about the shoulder at the right moment. He might be a good one because he's generating a lot of power from kind of a static position. Uh, our fielders in baseball will have an extra glove. What do you think? They can even do better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so because they don't have to do all those boundary slides and those ground fieldings as well. So I think the fielders would be the best adapted to go and perform in a baseball match, and that too with an additional glove. Of course, it will take some technique practice and adaptation, but I think they're the best suited for that. What's about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I remember when Australians in early 2000 got the reverse cup way of catching. You always catch with your fingers pointing down. That's the usual way of doing it, and that's more natural. But they put the reverse out, and that I think also has some elements of catching with a glove from in baseball. Uh, I think our elite fielders would do very well because they can dive, they can also, jump up because as we see now in a lot of T10, T20, a lot of memories of Karen Pollard on the boundary, putting his hand up, arm up, and trying to catch like stealing an egg from a bird's nest or whatever. I think yes, because there is enough skill now in modern T20 fielders and ODI fielders that they can do very well. I'm not so sure about their throwing because the throwing is needs to be more accurate and fast. I'm not saying that they would be bad at it. I think this is where they would need a lot of repetition, practice, and probably some focused gym work to work on it. But again, on this also, I'm optimistic that our fielders can do really well.
And also on the throwing bit, which base do you throw to? In cricket, there are two wickets, and
Yeah,
here there are four, right? So it becomes a bit more
you have to do
complex.
that calculation. Yeah, you have to do that calculation. Uh, But also, this is very interesting as well that in baseball, the fielding positions are also very static. So you will be able to over time figure out the speed, the velocity, the dip. So you will get used to. While in cricket, there are so many angles to cover sometimes that you don't get to make a position specialize for yourself when you are doing it in the outfield. There are, of course, there are specialist backward point fielder, there are specialist slip and gully fielders, but you never heard about a specialist long on fielder, for example,
Hmm.
because there's so much area to cover. But maybe in baseball you are able to do that because there are always set patterns when it comes to fielding.
True.
I think we have a good point in terms of uh, trying to give a summary and our overall thing. Before we come to the final conclusion of this podcast, would love to ask you, AB, considering the discussion we had, generally speaking, do you think that our cricketers would do better in baseball on an average level, or baseballers would do better in cricket?
I think when we talk about batters, I think it will be easier for the baseball hitters to come in and bat compared to our batters to go there. When it comes to bowling, then it would be easier for our bowlers to go and pitch the ball compared to their pitchers coming here and bowl. For fielding, I think it would be equally difficult or equally easy rather for both of them. So I think fielding is one area where it's the easier of the three for the people from other sports to come here and adapt. So that's my take on that. What about you, SS?
Yes, I think baseballers generally would do better in terms of hitting, especially in limited overs format. I think when the conditions are not homogeneous for them, they will struggle, but generally speaking, they will do better. Also, one more thing, cricketers are used to batting equipment and getting a lot of safety and all that. You don't get as a hitter in baseball. So there's that element as well. But otherwise, I agree with you on bowling and fielding. I think our cricketers can hold sway. Fielding will be really close, but I think I'm optimistic our fielders can do better. But since we this is a cricket podcast, we follow cricket much closer than baseball, and our listeners also do the same. If you had to say two or three cricketers from modern times who you think would really do well with given some practice and given some gym work in baseball, what are the top names that spring to your mind?
When we talk about batters, I would say someone like Andre Russell would do really well in baseball because of his muscle game, because of his ability to hit long sixes. When it comes to bowlers, I would say someone like Jasprit Bumrah because of the reasons I said before, because
Uh-huh.
he generates quick pace
Yeah.
with a very short run up. My hot take is someone like Harshal Patel who just has a slower ball might take it more naturally to baseball. Maybe he is just naturally more effective there compared to cricket because in cricket it becomes very easily readable by the batters. But that's on the lighter note. When it comes to fielders, I I would say that any elite cricket fielder right now would have the same ability to cope up with the requirements of baseball. What about you, SS?
Yeah, very interesting names that come in when I think about bowlers. I think about Stark. Apart from Bumrah, I also think about somebody like Andrew Ty, who has like four or five different variations of slower balls and knuckle balls. I think he's a knuckleball specialist. I remember in the second IPL season, which happened in South Africa, there was this guy, Rusty Theron, that was bought by Kings in Punjab. A lot of variations. People forget him, but I think he had that like a Harshal Patel kind of a skill set. Bogey pick, but I think like Stark, Malinga, these guys are really good. Maybe Dwayne Bravo as well, because the dip he used to get, it'll really beat the batter in the air because he would be expecting like a certain trajectory. In terms of cricket batters who can do well in hitting in, I think Jake Fraser McGurk is a flavor of the season when we think about baseball and cricket. Joss Butler can do really well because I saw that video. He was really connecting it really well, especially with the baseball machine. When the actual pitchers came on, he was struggling a little bit, but I think he can do really well. Any of the West, I think Evan Lewis and all these West Indies guys with their build. Phil Salt is, I think, up very good because I was so impressed with him yesterday. So there are some guys who can do it, but players like Sky and AB might even struggle because they bat in a different way, or are Sarfaraz, for example.
Their
Yeah,
scoring areas would be foul zones.
yeah, foul zones. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this was our conclusion on players that can do well. We'll put up a poll in our podcast for you guys to also vote on who you think can do very good, or somebody from history as well. If you think Shoaib Akhtar with his jerky action can do so well. But yeah, that was it for today. Uh, we will be again back during the midweek with a hot take, which is our bonus pod. We published our first bonus pod last Wednesday. Please check that one out. We are available on all podcasting platforms, and please spread the word. We will soon be able to share our social media handles of the podcast as well, and looking to grow the channel. So, yeah, wishing you the best of the week and see you very soon. Thank you.